Iran and its proxies continue to threaten revenge against Israel for the attack on its operatives. They're also hinting that the United States may also be a target.
Israel is bracing for a retaliatory strike. At the same time, the IDF is warning citizens of conflict escalating on the northern border. Chris Mitchell reports from Jerusalem.
Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei vowed Israel would pay for the attack against its operatives.
They will be slapped for that, of course. Day by day, the regime will become weaker, and God willing, it will get closer to demise and destruction.
Iran's President Raisi and Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah hinted the U.S. also might be targeted.
America is undoubtedly an inevitable partner in the crimes of the Zionist entity in Gaza.
The enemy will be defeated, as well as all who stand behind this enemy.
Iran may view the upcoming Al-Quds Day as a time to retaliate. On the last Friday of Ramadan, Iranians chant death to Israel and demand the end of the so-called Israeli occupation of Palestine. Anticipating the threat, the IDF is increasing its air defenses and canceling vacations for all military pilots and calling up air defense troops for duty.
As the country raises its defenses, it's also preparing to go on offense. Israeli media is reporting the IDF will launch a media campaign to prepare the civilian population for an escalation in the north.
With the country on heightened alert, Benny Gantz is calling on his rival, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, to agree to new elections in September, 2 years ahead of schedule.
I believe that the Israeli society needs to renew its contract with its leadership.
Netanyahu's Likud party says an election would freeze Israel in its tracks as it wages war in Gaza and prepares to step up the fight against Hezbollah.
You still have soldiers fighting inside Gaza with Hamas, and you also have a much larger war potentially looming with Hezbollah in the north. And if you go to an election right now, that could really paralyze the ability of the politicians, including the prime minister, who would then be a caretaker prime minister with limited authority, to be able to conduct the war the way it is truly necessary.
As the Israeli government deals with the fallout after the accidental killing of 7 international aid workers in Gaza, Netanyahu and President Biden are scheduled to speak by phone today. While Biden has expressed outrage over the deaths and opposes Israel's goals to invade Rafah and wipe out Hamas's last military battalions in Gaza, the White House insists it still backs Israel in its war against Hamas. Chris Mitchell, CBN News, Jerusalem.
Threats plus terror attacks in the Middle East and Russia have leaders worried it could happen here in the United States. Since 2020, more than 2 million people who are unaccounted for have crossed our southern border. And it's not just the ones on the terrorism watch list who are raising concerns. Gary Lane explains.
The recent arrest of a Hezbollah bomb maker at the southern border and ISIS terrorists striking a Moscow nightclub have national security experts concerned the U.S. is also vulnerable. Jonathan Tobin of the Jewish News Syndicate believes Iranian proxies, Hamas and Hezbollah, are targeting more than just Israel.
America is a target, too, of Islamist terrorism. And until we have a government that takes this seriously, that takes border security seriously, we have good reason to worry that this could happen here.
U.S. Customs and Border Protection have reported apprehending 70 illegal immigrants on the terrorism watch list since October. There are also concerns, however, about special interest aliens. Labeled as SIAs, these are individuals who may be considered suspicious based on their travel patterns, behavior, or country of origin. In the summer of 2023, the Daily Caller published data revealing Customs and Border Protection had flagged about 75,000 SIAs between October 2022 and August 2023. During a recent Senate Intelligence Committee hearing, Senator James Lankford asked FBI Director Christopher Wray about these special interest aliens.
Is the FBI kept in contact from DHS and others who those individuals are, or what kind of tracking and monitoring is on those individuals?
I know that we work closely with DHS, especially CBP, on the issue of special interest aliens, including a whole lot of work on the other side of the border to try to prevent them from coming in the first place. And I know there are instances where we're contacted, but I'm not sure that as I sit here right now, I can tell you that we're contacted in every instance.
It's the criminal getaways, those in the country illegally and not monitored by the FBI and police, that worry many Americans. An illegal immigrant charged with the murder of nursing student Laken Riley and the attack on New York City police officers by Venezuelan migrants are just two recent examples. Young Voices commentator and writer for The Spectator, Venezuelan-American Juan Pablo Villasmil, argues government agencies need to do more to keep SIA criminals out of the country. He believes some special interest aliens are members of a notorious Venezuelan gang.
In New York City, NYPD has already determined that there is a presence of the Tren de Aragua in the city. And as we see crime spread throughout the United States, many of them being brutal crime, a lot of people are asking themselves, how many members of the Tren de Aragua are already inside the United States?
While solutions to prevent criminals from entering the United States are under debate, Senator Marco Rubio doesn't believe the recently withdrawn border bill would have fixed the problem. He thinks presidential action would make a difference.
The way you fix the problem is by reversing the executive orders that President Biden put in place in his first month in office, which directly led to this crisis.
An immigration crisis and national security threats that many Americans feel cannot wait until the next president and Congress take office. Gary Lane, CBN News.
Well, I think it was his first day in office where he made that change, and it was all based on campaign promises, and he campaigned on what Trump was doing and Attorney General Sessions and the separation of migrant children from their parents. And essentially, he put a sign up on the border, you're welcome. And with that sign, who's reading that? Is it the poor and the oppressed? The answer quite clearly is yes, but our enemies are reading the same thing. And so if you have this policy where we're not going to build walls and we're not going to keep you out, and if you get caught and you get arrested, well, what's going to happen? You're going to get released. That is a worldwide advertisement, and you have to look at what are the consequences for that. Well, the main consequence, and we're hearing from the mayors of Chicago and New York, is that our social systems are completely overwhelmed. You can't have 2 to 3 million people come across in this period of time and not have that problem. So that's number one. And number two, do we not recognize that we're called the great Satan? Do we not recognize that a lot of our current policies and social policies within a Muslim framework and a Muslim ideology are absolute reasons for them to attack us? Do we not get this? Do we not understand the lessons of 9/11, that it was immigrants who were allowed into the country from Saudi Arabia, and they're the ones that went through our flight schools and we trained them how to fly airplanes? Do we not get the lessons of the history? And should we demand that our government change these policies? Again, it's going to be a political issue. It's going to be one of the major political issues for the upcoming presidential race. But in the meantime, let us not have a terrorist event. Can we please say no to this? And if you've got 75,000 people on some kind of suspicious list, all it takes is one. That's all it takes. And should we not be vigilant who comes into the country? Should we not be vigilant that we don't have open borders? And if you're not going to enforce the immigration law, well, then why is the immigration law on the book? And if you want different immigration laws, I do point out to Democrats, you had full control of both houses and the executive branch for 2 years. And if nothing passed, well, it's your own fault.